the North Pole, home of Christmas magic, flying reindeer, and the world's most famous toy maker. But here's something they don't tell you in the Christmas specials. Nobody actually lives there. And after you hear these 10 reasons why, you'll understand exactly why even Santa's considering relocating to the Bahamas. Stick around for number 6. It involves a restraining order. Welcome to World Spark, where we expose the hidden truths about the world's most mysterious places. Today, we're investigating the ultimate real estate disaster, the North Pole. Sure, it looks magical in movies, but the reality is more nightmare than winter wonderland. From hostile wildlife to toxic workplace environments, zoning violations, and property disputes that have been going on for centuries, the North Pole is basically an HOA's worst nightmare covered in snow. Reason 10. Icebergs. Let's start with the obvious. Icebergs. We're talking about massive, unpredictable floating death traps that make living at the North Pole like building your dream home in the middle of a demolition derby. Here's what they don't show you in the Christmas specials. The Arctic ice cap is literally melting. We're talking about a 13% decline per decade. That means Santa's workshop? It's basically built on the world's slowest moving Titanic. Imagine trying to get a mortgage when your property is literally disappearing beneath your feet. No bank is touching that. Even the elves have started looking at Zillow listings in Greenland. But here's where it gets really crazy. The icebergs don't just melt, they calve. That's when massive chunks of ice just break off and float away. So you could be peacefully living in your igloo, sipping hot cocoa, and boom, your entire neighborhood is now a cruise ship headed toward Norway. The HOA fees alone would be astronomical. But melting ice is just the beginning. Wait until you hear about the squatters. Reason 9. Misfit toys. Remember the island of misfit toys from Rudolph? Cute story, right? Wrong. This is an unauthorized settlement on North Pole territory, operating without proper permits since 1964. Let's break down this real estate disaster. You've got a Charlie in the box, literally a toy with an identity crisis, running what appears to be some kind of toy refugee camp. No business license, no zoning approval, and don't even get me started on the building codes. A spotted elephant, a train with square wheels. These aren't whimsical, these are safety hazards. OSHA would shut this operation down in approximately 5 seconds. Square wheels violate every transportation regulation ever written. And that cowboy riding an ostrich? That's not a toy. That's a liability lawsuit waiting to happen. This island just appeared. No geological surveys, no environmental impact statements. The North Pole has become a dumping ground for industrial waste, except the waste has feelings and wants to be loved. The emotional support infrastructure alone would bankrupt any local government. Speaking of regulatory nightmares, wait until you hear about the real reason Rudolph got that job. Reason 8. Rudolph. Let's talk about Rudolph. The story they tell you. Plucky underdog overcomes bullying, saves Christmas, becomes a hero. The story they don't tell you. The North Pole has the worst workplace discrimination problems this side of a 1950s country club. Think about this timeline. Rudolph is born with a glowing red nose, a clear physical difference. And what happens? Immediate ostracization, bullying from coworkers, name-calling. His own father is embarrassed by him. Donner literally tries to hide his son's nose with mud. That's not parenting. That's teaching your kid to be ashamed of who he is. And Santa? Santa's response to all this discrimination? Nothing. Zero diversity training. No anti-bullying policies. He lets his entire reindeer team create a hostile work environment for years until, oh wait, he needs something from Rudolph. Hey Rudolph, I know we made your life miserable, but I need your nose to navigate through fog, so suddenly you're valuable now. That's not redemption. That's exploitation. This is conditional inclusion based on utility. Rudolph doesn't get respect because discrimination is wrong. He gets respect because he's useful. The settlement check alone would fund Rudolph's retirement to Miami, but at least Rudolph got something out of it, unlike the next resident, who got literally melted. Reason 7. Frosty. Frosty the Snowman. They sold you a Christmas miracle. The reality? This is a horrifying tale of temporary animation, property destruction, and the complete absence of building codes. Here are the facts. Some kids build a snowman. Someone puts a magic hat on him. He comes to life. And everyone just goes with this? No one calls the authorities? No one questions how reality just fundamentally broke? But here's where the North Pole housing crisis comes in. Frosty is made of snow. His entire existence depends on temperatures staying below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. This means the North Pole is the only place he can theoretically live permanently, except for one tiny problem: climate change. Frosty isn't a feel-good story. He's a climate refugee with no legal status and an expiration date. He can't get insurance. He can't sign a lease. One warm day, and he's literally a puddle with a corn cob pipe in it. You know how hard it is to rent an apartment when your body is made of frozen precipitation? Impossible. Every time he melts and comes back, that's basically dying and being resurrected. The emotional trauma of knowing you're going to melt every spring and maybe come back. That's existential horror, not a Christmas special. And you thought Frosty had problems? Wait until we talk about his roommate. Reason 6. Bumble. The Abominable Snowman. Also known as the Bumble. Also known as the reason North Pole real estate is basically worthless. Let's establish what we're dealing with. A giant, aggressive, territorial predator who eats anything that moves and has been terrorizing the region for decades. This isn't a quirky neighbor. This is Jaws, but in snow and with worse dental hygiene. You know what kills property values faster than anything? A local apex predator. Try selling your house with the disclosure. Charming ice castle, great views, one previous owner, slight chance of being eaten by territorial snow monster. And here's the thing. The Bumble has a legitimate grievance. This is his territory. He was there first. Santa basically rolled in, set up shop, industrialized the entire region, and then has the audacity to call the Bumble a monster when he gets territorial. From the Bumble's perspective, this is a gentrification nightmare. But wait, it gets better. At the end of Rudolph, what do? They remove his teeth. Hermé the elf literally performs dental surgery without anesthesia or consent. That's assault. That's maiming. And then they're like, oh, now he's harmless, he can work for us. The Bumble has Stockholm Syndrome and is putting stars on Christmas trees for his captors. Would you want to live next to this situation? Speaking of bankrupt, let's talk about the labor situation. Reason 5. Elves. Oh boy. Buckle up, because we're about to expose the biggest labor scandal in North Pole history. The elves. Here's what we know. Hundreds, possibly thousands of elves work year-round manufacturing toys in Santa's workshop. And here's what we don't know. Their wages, their working conditions, their hours, or literally any workplace protections. Let's start with the basics. Are elves employees or slaves? Because I've watched a lot of Christmas specials, and I have never seen an elf punch a time clock, take a vacation, or receive a W-2. They work year-round, live on site, and their entire existence revolves around toy production. That's not employment. That's indentured servitude with candy canes. But they sing while they work. Yeah, so did people in chain gangs. Doesn't make it okay. And let's talk about workplace safety. These elves are operating heavy machinery, working with potentially toxic materials like toy paint, and doing repetitive motion tasks that would give an OSHA inspector a heart attack. Where are the safety guards? Where's the workers' compensation insurance? Hermé wanted to be a dentist. That means he had dreams beyond toy making. But was there any career development program? No, he was mocked for wanting more. This is a company town taken to its dystopian extreme. You work for Santa, you live in Santa's housing, you eat Santa's food. And don't even get me started on the lack of union representation. But at least the elves get food, unlike what's happening in the kitchen. Reason 4. Mrs. Claus. Mrs. Claus, the unsung hero of Christmas, the woman behind the man, the one who keeps Santa fed through his annual one-night around-the-world sprint, and also possibly running the most unregulated food operation in the Northern Hemisphere. Let's examine the evidence. Mrs. Claus is constantly in the kitchen, baking cookies, making hot cocoa, preparing meals for Santa, and presumably the entire elf workforce. But here's the question nobody asks. Where is her food handler's permit? This is industrial-scale food production happening in what appears to be a residential kitchen. There's no commercial-grade equipment, no health inspections, no ServSafe certification visible anywhere. And let's talk about those cookies. Santa eats milk and cookies from millions of homes in one night. That's not quality control. That's Russian roulette with lactose. One bad cookie, one case of food poisoning, and Christmas is canceled. But Mrs. Claus is also feeding hundreds of elves. Where's she getting ingredients for that scale? Is there a supply chain? A food budget? And here's the uncomfortable question. In a lot of specials, Mrs. Claus's entire character makes food and worries about Santa. That's not a person. That's a 1950s stereotype with no agency. You want to live somewhere where food safety regulations don't exist and traditional gender roles are frozen in time? The North Pole is perfect for you. But if Mrs. Claus has it rough, at least she's not dealing with him. Reason 3. Santa. We need to talk about Santa, the big guy himself. Because while everyone's focused on the magic and joy, nobody's asking the uncomfortable questions about the man who essentially owns the entire North Pole. Let's start with property ownership. Santa has a workshop, a house, stables, storage facilities, and apparently housing for hundreds of elves. Who gave him this land? Did he file a claim? Is there a deed? Or did he just show up one day and declare, This is mine now, we're making toys. Because that's not real estate development, that's colonization. And let's talk about his management style. Santa runs a 24/7 year-round operation with a workforce that never leaves, never retires, and has no visible path to advancement. The elves make toys. The reindeer pull the sleigh. Mrs. Claus makes food. And Santa? Santa is the CEO, COO, and board of directors all in one. This is a monopoly. Santa has cornered the market on Christmas gift distribution. Amazon wishes it had this level of market dominance. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Santa is judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to the naughty and nice list. No appeals process, no transparency. And that he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake line? That's not whimsy, that's surveillance. Santa is running a global monitoring operation on every child on Earth, and nobody questions it because he brings presents. That's not a gift giver, that's Big Brother with a beard. You want to live under a benevolent dictatorship where one man controls the economy, the housing, the food supply, and knows everything you do? The North Pole is waiting. Also, let's be real. The carbon footprint of one night of global sleigh travel is astronomical. Santa might bring joy, but he's destroying the planet one chimney at a time. And if you think Santa's bad, wait until we talk about his worst enemy. Reason 2. Grinch. The Grinch. He lives just north of Whoville, which according to most Christmas cartographers puts him disturbingly close to North Pole airspace. And this creates a massive security problem. Think about this. The Grinch is a documented criminal. He committed mass larceny on Christmas Eve, broke into hundreds of homes, stole presents, decorations, food, and even attempted to steal an entire holiday. This isn't petty theft, this is organized crime. And where does he live? In a cave on Mount Crumpet, close enough to the North Pole that it's essentially in the same neighborhood. This is like finding out your quiet suburban street backs up to a supervillain's lair. Property values, destroyed. Home insurance, through the roof. Because you're not just dealing with regular crime. You're dealing with someone who has a pathological hatred of your entire way of life. The Grinch doesn't want to rob you, he wants to erase the concept of joy. And yes, he had a redemption arc. His heart grew 3 sizes, very touching. But you know what? Recidivism is a real thing. One bad day, one noise complaint, and the Grinch is back to his old ways. Nobody wants to live where your biggest threat is someone who finds your happiness personally offensive. Plus, his dog Max is clearly being held against his will. But you know who really can't handle North Pole living? Our final, most relatable reason. Reason 1. Charlie Brown. And finally, we arrive at the #1 reason nobody lives at the North Pole. It will destroy your mental health. Exhibit A. Charlie Brown. A Charlie Brown Christmas is supposed to be heartwarming, but let's look at what actually happens. Charlie Brown is depressed. He's anxious about the commercialization of Christmas, nobody respects him. He buys a pathetic little tree that everyone mocks, and even his own dog is embarrassed by him. This is what the North Pole does to people. The relentless cheerfulness, the constant pressure to be jolly, the endless winter darkness. It's a recipe for seasonal affective disorder on steroids. Charlie Brown represents all of us. We can't all be Santa. We can't all be magical. Sometimes you're just a kid trying to find meaning while everyone around you is obsessed with aluminum Christmas trees. The North Pole operates on an impossible standard. Constant joy, perfect toy production, flawless gift delivery, and zero margin for human emotion. That's not a community, that's a pressure cooker. And look at the support systems. Lucy is charging for therapy. Schroeder is emotionally unavailable. Snoopy is living in a fantasy world. The only functional relationship is Linus with his blanket, which is literally a security object because nothing else provides security. You move to the North Pole thinking it'll be magical, and 6 months later, you're Charlie Brown, existentially exhausted, questioning everything, holding a tiny tree that represents your crushed dreams, while everyone around you is too busy being festive to notice you're drowning. The suicide rates at the North Pole are probably classified information. Even in the end, Charlie Brown's redemption comes from external validation. His tree only matters when everyone else decides it matters. That's not healing, that's codependency. The North Pole will promise you Christmas magic and deliver existential despair. So there you have it, the 10 real reasons nobody lives at the North Pole. From melting icebergs to labor violations, from monstrous neighbors to questionable food safety, from surveillance capitalism to mental health crises, the North Pole isn't a winter wonderland. It's a dystopian company town wrapped in tinsel. And here's the thing, we love these Christmas specials. We watch them every year. They're nostalgic, they're comforting, they're tradition. But when you actually examine the logistics, the economics, and the social structures of the North Pole, it's a disaster. Santa is running an unregulated monopoly with questionable labor practices. The elves have no rights. The wildlife is either exploited or maimed. The housing market is literally melting. And if you dare to have feelings about it, you're Charlie Brown with a sad tree. So this Christmas, when you're watching these classics with your family, remember, you're not watching holiday magic. You're watching the world's most elaborate cover-up for why absolutely nobody would actually choose to live at the North Pole. If you enjoyed this festive investigation, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Which Christmas location would you never want to live in? And if you think I'm wrong about any of this, well, you've been on the naughty list. From all of us at World Spark, have a Merry Christmas, preferably somewhere warmer.